Salam, mənim adım Qəribova Nəzrindir. Bakıda doğulmuşam, amma 5 yaşımdan 23 yaşıma kimi Amerikada yaşamışam və bütün təhsilim Amerikada almışam. Və bu gün sizinlə mənə çox dəyərli olan mövzudan danışmaq istəyirəm. Amma fikirlərimi tam sərbəst şəkildə çatdırmaq üçün ingilis dilində bunları danışacağam. Growing up in the US school system, sport, both recreational and competitive, was a completely normal part of life for myself and for most of my peers. Most of us were lucky enough to be able to try out a variety of different sports. And this luck really is thanks to the hard work and dedication of my parents, as well as the support of my school system and the community around me. And like I said, I grew up able to try out a bunch of different sports, but the one that I ultimately fell in love with and decided to stick with was figure skating. My dad would take me to train at the rink at 5 a.m. before classes would start at school. My mom would spend nights bedazzling my competition dresses. Of course, for my parents, academics were always a priority, and they never really let me, to have sports take over my life. But to them, it was still important that I developed healthy habits of maintaining a healthy lifestyle throughout my life. In school, most kids were involved with some kind of sport. At the very least, our physical education, PE classes, involved all sorts of exciting and inclusive types of games that made us excited about getting our bodies moving and being physically active. We played things that weren't divisive or segregated by gender or ability. We just played, and we didn't realize that what we were doing was teaching our body sport. This sense of inclusivity helped us build confidence and teamwork, and in general, growing up, sport has taught me discipline, commitment, confidence. It grants me a feeling of freedom that no other thing in life, I think, is able to grant you. It has taught me to get back up every time I've fallen down, and it has consistently provided a community of like-minded, healthy individuals throughout all phases of life. I moved back to Azerbaijan in 2021 with the main goal of exploring the different mountain trails that the country has to offer in the framework of the Trans-Caucasian Trail Project, which links together the South Caucasian countries along the Greater and Lesser Caucasus Mountains. One of the hardest parts personally about moving back here was kind of losing that structured sport that I had grown so used to. So because of that, I tested my hand at yoga, which led me to join running communities and eventually trail running. And that led to me joining the National Ski Mountaineering Team, which is based in Shahdag of Gusar. Of course, I miss my family and friends and certain day-to-day conveniences of Virginia, but being here has offered a different type of richness in life. A lot of things are very rapidly developing, and especially the outdoor sphere. There is a lot of opportunity to get involved, to build new things. There's a lot of room to create and contribute, and the outdoor sphere grants a lot of opportunity to help shape and mold outdoor recreation in the mountains in our country. Of course, moving from the DC area to Baku and then to Gusar has come with adapting to a lot of certain cultural shifts. One of the most significant ones, I think, is witnessing how young people, especially in the regions, and especially girls, see themselves as very limited in the directions of life that they can choose from. So I wish that in my lifetime I can see a significant shift in these young people, especially outside of the city, being able to choose different types of opportunities and passions to follow and form their lives around. And of course, the shifts have been difficult for myself, but I think that humans are very adaptable. And there are times when I look back at past versions of myself and I can grow nostalgic for them. But I also understand that returning to old versions of myself and of life, I wouldn't be going back as the same person. So I try to value each stage of life and all the difficulties and the benefits that come through all these changes. Growing up in the US, being involved in sport really seemed just normal. It wasn't unusual for kids to be parts of teams, to have trainings after school, even to compete regularly on weekends, boys and girls alike. In Azerbaijan, of course, I didn't grow up in the system, so I can only say based off of what I have witnessed in my short time here or from what I've heard from others. But the approach to sport, especially to girls in sport, is quite different. Boys often play outside after school, whereas girls are encouraged to stay inside and take care of themselves. In PE classes and physical education classes, mandatory running was something that a lot of people try to get out of. And I think that's relevant both here in Azerbaijan and in the US. But one big difference is that in the US, if you were a girl and you tried to get out of running mandatory laps, maybe under the excuse of having menstrual cramps, the teacher would say, suck it up. Movement will make you feel better. It'll cut down on whatever pains you might be feeling. Whereas here, from what I understand, it's a lot easier to be excused from that mandatory physical movement. And I think that this instills in girls this idea that sport and movement are optional. I didn't grow up in the local system, so I speak from the outside, just through observation. But I see a lot of positive changes as well. I hear from parents with kids in the private school system that their physical education and other recreational classes are given a lot of effort from the side of the school and the teachers. You see new parks being built with equipment for comfortable and free physical movement and exercise. New parks might have mini football fields or basketball courts. But of course, the goal is ultimately to have this type of recreational exercise be available to everybody, regardless of your social class, regardless of your geography or your income. It's a much more different story when you look outside of the city into the countryside as well. In a system in which teachers and educators are undervalued and underpaid, you cannot expect them to go above and beyond to also motivate their students to take part in physical education, in sports. It is out there in the countryside, in the rural parts of the country, that you see perhaps the strongest, most enduring children. But unfortunately, they also have the least amount of opportunities to commit themselves to sport, both professional and recreational. In the US, girls being involved in sport almost seemed expected at times. Of course, there are issues that continue to need to be solved. But growing up, it wasn't at all unusual to see girls training, competing, and thriving in sport. Here, it seems to be less of a given and more of a gesture. A parent that lets their daughter participate in sport seems to be doing something out of the ordinary often, or going against societal expectations. But girls have bodies too. They need movement, they need strength, they need play. I often see young girls here on the street being told to stop running because they might fall. This isn't something that parents should be scared of. Let your daughters fall, let your children fall. The most important thing is to teach them to get back up afterwards. The risk of injury is far smaller than the risk of never learning resilience. What breaks my heart is often hearing women of all ages, even young girls, talk about exercising in order to fix their bodies. Movement and sport shouldn't come from a place of self-criticism or self-degradation. Sport and movement should make you bigger, stronger, more confident. It shouldn't be used as a way to shrink yourself or make you take up less space. Girls need to feel that their bodies are powerful, not something to shrink or to hide. I know that sport might not feel like a priority amidst a society that is facing many other developmental changes, but sport is more than just fun. It teaches resilience, self-worth, community, and it lays the foundations for a stronger, healthier, and more ambitious generation. Teaching kids to stay active and showing them how and why isn't all that absurd, I think. Public and private education should start instilling these values from a very young age. Sport shouldn't be gendered. In fact, boys and girls show very similar physical capabilities until adolescence, and this period is critical for laying the foundations of confidence and equality in access to sport. I've noticed that here in Azerbaijan, sport tends to be more developed at the very beginner levels or at the extreme professional levels. But this middle recreational area is where you can show that sport is for everyone. Azerbaijan has such a rich landscape and culture of movement in the mountains. And unfortunately, as life in the mountains continues to decrease as people move into the cities, this connection with the terrain also weakens. Hiking, trail running, mountain biking, skiing, all of these are fields that are quickly and rapidly growing thanks to groups of very dedicated individuals and organizations. And I hope that they can continue to serve as a gateway for people to be involved in movement and sport in meaningful ways. In Shahdag, there is a growing ski club for young children. We're also starting an initiative that will provide access to trail running for women who might be facing certain social barriers. Groups like Race Oz put together amazing trail races that people of all levels are able to join and test their limits in the mountains. The Transcaucasian Trail aims to make mountains and hiking more accessible by providing open and public information. The interest is there. People want to move. But investment and support needs to continue from both the public and private sector, and especially beyond the city, beyond Baku. The toughest, most enduring people living in this country are out there in the countryside, and they deserve a chance to shine in the spotlight of sport as well. Sport builds more than muscle. It builds self-trust. It teaches you how to commit, how to fail and recover, how to work on a team. It strengthens the mind, it sharpens character, it helps young people understand and test their own limits. Girls who grow up active grow up to be stronger and more confident. Boys who grow up active learn to channel their energy in a positive and beneficial way. This is a win for all of society. It's not just about health. It's about life lessons such as confidence, teamwork, adaptability, and the ability to continue moving and working when things get tough. Let your children move. Let them play, let them fall, and let them learn to get back up again. Give them the space to try new things, even if they're not good at them. Not all kids will want to move to compete. Some kids just want to move in a way that makes them feel free and happy. Let them explore and let them choose. You don't need huge amounts of money and time to let your child enjoy the benefits of sport. By the day, clubs, communities, teams, and informal spaces in which individuals can test themselves within sport are growing. The confidence, strength, and joy that they discover in themselves through sport may stay with them for life.